Scott, I'm sure I saw you playing for the NSL back in the day. When you look at the NSL and then you look at A-League now, how's the difference in the standard between the two eras? It's difficult to compare, but try.
Yeah, I know. And to be honest, I haven't seen that many A-League games. I've only been to one live game, and the standard looked okay. I think we had, there's not including me in this list, but there were some great players playing in the National League when I was playing. Like your Mark Schwartz's and your Washington Gonzalez, we talked about him before, former Uruguayan international, Itek Gench, Greg Brown, Marshall Soper at Melita.
Zoran Ilic.
Yeah, had to get him. But there was some excellent players. I'm not saying there's not good players now, but just in terms of the professionalism and the marketing now is outstanding. When we were playing at Melita, we looked like a pub team. We just wear our own kit to train. We didn't even have training kit provided. But Melita, I have a lot of fond memories there. They were a good little club. They were working on a very tight budget, but great fans, and I had a great time at Melita.
Who was your coach at the time?
Raul Blanco was my coach for most of the time. I spent a year under Rally Rasic, which I prefer not to remember. But Blanco for me was the best coach I've ever had. He was outstanding.
What made him so special then? What made him so good?
He was just... The thing I respected him for was his discipline, and he expected everyone, he treated everyone the same, whether you were a newcomer, whether you're a national team player. But he encouraged us to play. He encouraged to play, try to play good football, South American, get the ball on the ground and passing. And although my game didn't lend itself to South American style, I appreciated what he was trying to do, and I've tried to incorporate a lot of things that he taught me as a player into my coaching. So
it's a big influence then. Back in those NSL days, what opponents or what players did you remember playing against who you admired at the time? And
yeah, one of the Francis Awaratifi was always a player that we used to have great battles. Francis, I'm sure he'd be the first to admit, wasn't the most skillful player, but he gave 100%. He was tall and gangly. He was always a handful. Warren Spinky used to play for Preston when I was. We always used to have good battles as well. David Lowe, he was playing for Marconi at the time, great player. Kimon Taliadoris, South Melbourne.
Zoran Ilic.
Yeah. I think I only marked Zoran once when I don't know, because they had at St George at the time. Tony Krizlovic was there for a while as well. He used to always have a good battle. Alistair Edwards, Abbassad, when they were playing in Olympic. Yeah, so I had some interesting battles, but we had a good team of Melita, a good bunch of boys who did all right. I think we overachieved in some instances because in terms of budgets and that, we couldn't compete with the Marconis in the Olympics.
I think there's still the switch from the NSL and its maybe ethnic roots of the teams to the A-League. That was inevitable, really, wasn't it? It had to happen.
Yeah, because I think it got to the stage where they were alienating a lot of the Anglo-Australians living in Sydney at the time.
Yeah.
I'm talking from a Sydney point of view, because sometimes it got to the stage where the announcements at Sydney, Croatia, were in Croatian, and that people didn't want to go and. I had problems when we were playing in the State League. I was playing for Uruguay Penrith, and we were playing against Avala at the time, which is now Bonnyrigg, and we were locked in our dressing room for like 30 minutes after the game because they were rioting. It just didn't lend itself to a nice family outing.
And so it was all about, back then you became an expert almost on the Balkans breakup even before it happened, didn't you?
Yeah, it was. It was inevitable. There was always going to be problems when the Croatians played the Serbian clubs, or the Macedonians played the Greek clubs. There's always that little bit of tension that was, you're there to play football. You're not there to solve problems that were happening thousands of miles away.
Yeah. So you look back fondly on the NSL. Do you ever sort of think to yourself, back then, if you got a chance to play in Singapore or Malaysia, you took it because you had good money, good salary, well looked after, and good crowds. And now it's a given that Australian players will go to Europe or they go to China or Japan or South Korea. Do you look back on that and think to yourself, I was born 20 years too early?
Not really, mate. I'm realistic. I was a fairly limited player, so I always wanted to play full-time professional football. And that wasn't available. In the old NSL, I was a teacher. I was teaching economics and business studies in the daytime and going to training at night time. And lucky I had good bosses who, when we travelled in the state, I could come back the next day and it was all right. But the opportunity to go to Malaysia and Singapore for me, it wasn't about the money. It was about the opportunity to play full-time football and saying that that's your job. You know, you wake up in the morning, you go and train. It was great to just be able to concentrate on football and nothing else.
How were the crowds there? You moved from Melita Eagles to, where did you go to first?
Went to KL in Malaysia.
So how did the crowds from Melita Eagles to KL?
Oh, mate, I mean, unfortunately, KL was one of the worst supported teams in the league. But when we played in Singapore, 55,000 people at the National Stadium, because Singapore were playing in the Malaysia Cup in those days.
Yeah.
Selangor, 60,000. I mean, it was great atmosphere, and there was a great opportunity to play in front of so many people.
And then you moved to Singapore.
Moved to Singapore in the start of the S League, which was great because the hype for the start of the S League back in 2006 was unbelievable.
1996.
1996, sorry. Yeah, sorry, mate, I'm showing my age there. 1996 was a great time. I mean, the first game for the S League at Tampines Stadium, the day before they were selling tickets, and people were lining up outside to buy a ticket for the next day's game. I mean, people would laugh at you now if you go to the S League and talk about that. But it was
even asked about buying a ticket.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Unfortunately, it's just lost its hype.
So what happened? Where are those people queuing up 24 hours before kickoff? Where are they now?
Because it was so close following on from the Malaysia Cup. I think people were trying to relive the days, and they had a lot of the old Malaysia Cup stars playing in those days. Fandi was there, Sundram was there. Some of the players who used to play in other teams in Malaysia were playing in Singapore. Yan Yanistak and Irvan Boban, who's playing for Johor. Darren Stewart later on. But they had some good players, and once again, I'm not including me in this, but Geylang had some Iranian World Cup players playing in their team in the S League. Right. Tanjong Pagar had Ivan Kelic, Dave Miller, Pedro Ricoy. I mean, Bozanovsky was there later on as well. They had some good players playing in the S League, and you look, no disrespect to the players that are playing there now, but the quality of the foreign players now is nowhere near what it was 10 years ago.
How about the quality of the local players in the S League?
Well, once again, I don't think Singapore's done themselves any favours when it comes to youth development. Once it became not compulsory for clubs to have centre of excellences, half the clubs stopped. So there's a big problem there, and it's right. The FAS are trying to do the best they can with such a limited pool of players. And I've said this so many times, Singapore's got such a limited, small population, and then there's not two-thirds of the population are Chinese, very few Chinese players playing, and they've got to try and do something to try and get access to those players because of a limited pool of players.
All right, mate, that will do for the moment. Let's have a drink.
Okay, mate.
Cheers.